when I was beefing with him, he would go, "We everywhere, you never there." And it's because I was already in the arenas. So what would I be doing back in the nightclub?
Yeah.
At that point.
After Terrence to Dixon filed a complaint saying he saw the rapper isolate, groom, and take advantage of young people while working for his company, Fat Joe's lawyer fired back hard. Joe, whose real name is Joseph Antonio Cartagena, isn't taking these claims lightly. But things got even crazier when 50 Cent broke his silence, claiming Fat Joe tried to have him taken out. Now, Joe's name is all over a RICO lawsuit that's adding weight to those claims. We're not talking regular rap beef anymore. This is about an alleged murder plot and accusations that Joe ran his team like a full-on crime syndicate. And it's not coming from some random source. It's Joe's own hype man who was by his side for over 10 years spilling all the details. So how does 50 Cent fit into this madness? Everyone knows Joe and 50 had serious beef back in the day. According to this lawsuit, Joe allegedly tried to get 50 taken out multiple times, but 50's security was too solid to let anything happen. Wild, right? Now, but here's where it gets real messy. 50 Cent actually responded to these claims. Thing is, his side of the story doesn't match the lawsuit exactly. 50 is saying it was never that deep. Fans can't help but wonder, why would he downplay something so serious unless there's more behind the scenes? People want to know if he's protecting himself or trying not to reopen old wounds. We're about to dive into what this RICO lawsuit says about Fat Joe, how 50 reacted, and how it all ties back to the old G-Unit versus Terror Squad war. Once you see the names involved, the timeline of events, and these accusations, it gets downright explosive. Some folks even claim these allegations make what Diddy's facing look tame. Let's get into it. According to this new lawsuit from Fat Joe's former hype man, Terrence Todd Dixon, Joe didn't just want 50 Cent quiet, he wanted him gone. Dixon claims Joe ordered a hit on 50 at the height of their feud, planning to make it look like a simple robbery. Wild stuff. The lawsuit spells it out clear as day. It says Fat Joe was involved in a cold, calculated plan to take out Curtis Jackson, better known as 50 Cent, sometime in the winter of 2006 to 2007. Dixon claims Joe was living in Miami when he got tipped off that 50 was at a New York venue. That's when, according to the lawsuit, Joe allegedly gave the green light for the hit. But 50 was rolling deep with Navy SEAL level security and the crew supposedly chickened out. The papers even claim Fat Joe told people straight up to put a bag on 50 Cent's head and got mad it wasn't handled fast enough. Dixon says Joe wasn't hiding it from his team either. The lawsuit claims he told his people he'd been trying to get 50 for a minute and that he was visibly shaking and upset when the plan fell through. That's supposed to show he wasn't just talking tough, he was actively plotting and working with people to make it happen. It gets even more intense. Dixon alleges they tracked 50's tour dates and appearances to set up ambushes at public events. When this lawsuit hit the news, everyone thought 50 would go nuclear, but instead, he surprised everyone with his response. 50 posted a photo of himself with Joe using Young Buck's track Prices on My Head as the background music. In his caption, he shut down the claims, writing, "These Basil's accusations and claims are not credible. I'm sorry. Joe has to endure the public scrutiny and damage to his reputation. This is stick up. I wrote this hook. I should have kept this one."
I like to tell the people home, I feel so safe tonight with all this police protection courtesy of G-Unit. Fat Joe is man. Pussy boy.
That move left people scratching their heads. Some say they can't tell if 50 is trolling or actually defending Joe. Others think he's playing it smart, keeping Joe close because he knows it's true, sincere, my A, as one person put it. But let's be real, anyone can say anything in a lawsuit. The catch here is Dixon isn't just anyone. He was on Joe's team for years and claims he saw how Joe ran things like a mob boss. And he says that hit on 50 was just one piece of the shady moves happening behind the scenes. Let's get into what else Terrence Todd Dixon is accusing Fat Joe of. Because believe it or not, the murder plot claim isn't even the most shocking part. This is where things get seriously unsettling. Dixon says Joe got involved with underage girls and even paid for procedures for a girl who was only 15. The lawsuit filed in federal court in New York is so heavy it starts with a warning and runs 157 pages deep. Dixon claims Joe forced him into humiliating situations, making him do things he didn't want to under watch and threat. He says Joe would leave him stuck in foreign countries if he didn't follow orders. That's a wild accusation. Dixon claims he was pressured into doing over 4,000 acts to stay in Joe's good graces. But the worst part of the lawsuit is where Dixon says he saw Joe involved with young girls who weren't legal adults. He claims he personally witnessed Joe with victims aged around 15 or 16. The lawsuit names 3 Jane Does with detailed claims about how Joe allegedly used money and gifts to keep them around. One Jane Doe is said to be a 16-year-old Dominican girl from New York. Dixon says Joe gave her cash, clothes, and paid her phone bill in return for certain acts. That's a heavy accusation to throw out. The second Jane Doe is described as a non-U.S. citizen who was Caucasian. Dixon claims Joe started getting involved with her when she was 15 after a concert overseas. He says Joe flew her to New York and Miami multiple times. That's some serious plotting if true. It gets even more twisted. Dixon claims Joe paid for her to get surgery so she'd look older. That's got people shaking their heads. Then there's Jane Doe 3, a Latina girl who Dixon says met Joe when she was about 15 turning 16. Dixon claims Joe was so into her he even thought about leaving his wife. He says Joe paid all her bills, brought her to tour stops overseas, and even set her up in a condo just blocks from his own home in Florida. Dixon says all this went down while Fat Joe was in his late 30s. These claims are lighting up social media with folks asking if this is the real Joe or a carefully hidden side he kept from the public. It's messy, dramatic, and no one knows how it'll all shake out. Dixon even dropped photos of Jane Doe 3 with her high school friends, claiming those pics were taken while Fat Joe was allegedly moving her across state lines. That's a bold claim right there. But does this mean Fat Joe is actually facing a RICO case? Well, here's the catch. It's a civil RICO lawsuit. Civil RICO is a way regular folks can sue someone under the RICO Act, which was originally meant to take down mobsters and organized crime rings. It's got that heavy reputation for exposing entire criminal setups, not just lone wolves. That's exactly what Dixon is trying to argue. He's saying Fat Joe ran a full-on criminal enterprise with his crew. Dixon even names two people as co-conspirators, Pistol Pete Torres and Richard Rich Blair. He calls them key players in Joe's so-called operation. That's not something you hear every day. But to actually win this kind of case, Dixon has to prove there was an organized group doing real dirt, not just one dude acting shady. He needs to show there was a pattern of crimes, meaning at least two separate acts like fraud, extortion, trafficking, or witness intimidation. And it has to be over time, not just a one-off stunt. That's how RICO hits so hard, it paints the picture of a whole criminal system working behind the scenes. And that's why lawyers use RICO so strategically, even in civil cases. The word alone has weight. It makes the public and even the feds pay close attention, especially when someone who used to be in the crew steps up and claims, "I saw it all." That kind of insider testimony hits different. Let's not kid ourselves. RICO talk isn't new in the rap game. From YSL to Casanova, even Diddy's name has been floating around. The feds are watching everything right now. But if these allegations about Joe's supposed setup running for over a decade are true, the big question on everyone's mind is, why did Dixon stay quiet for so long? That's what's got people debating and speculating like crazy. 50 Cent called this whole thing a stick-up, but people want to know what made Dixon finally speak out. That's where it gets interesting.
After Terrence T.A. Dixon filed a complaint alleging that he witnessed the rapper groom, isolate, and exploit minors while employed by his company, a lawyer for Fat Joe, whose real name is Joseph Antonio Cartagena, fired back.
Dixon says he kept quiet for years out of straight fear. Not just losing work, but fear for his life. He claims that when he tried to step back, there were real threats. He says Joe kept him close because he knew too much. Most folks outside the industry don't even know Terrence Dixon's name, but he wasn't just some background guy. He was Fat Joe's hype man for 16 years. Always right there on tour, city after city. But now he's flipping the script, saying Joe used his status to control everyone around him with fear and intimidation. That's a heavy accusation. So now people are asking, is this about justice or is it just revenge? Dixon says it wasn't one single falling out moment that ended it. It was years of being used, underpaid, and finally pushed out when he stopped playing along. That's when the real drama started. And get this, he didn't stop at just accusing Joe. Dixon named Roc Nation in his lawsuit too. He claims they actually helped Joe run his so-called criminal operation. He calls Roc Nation a strategic facilitator and aider of racketeering activity. According to Dixon, they knew or chose not to see what Joe was doing. That's a wild claim to make in court. Dixon even says he wasn't just a witness. He was one of the victims himself. He claims he went through forced labor, financial fraud, threats of violence, and even trafficking. That's not small talk. It's big, serious allegations. But let's talk timing for a second. That's got a lot of people raising eyebrows. Joe's career has been pretty quiet lately while all the real heat is aimed at other rap moguls. So folks are wondering, is Dixon just trying to get his own payday while the feds are watching hip-hop like hawks? Or is he finally telling the truth after years of staying silent? It's messy, confusing, and everybody's got their own theory about what's really going on, and it doesn't stop there. People digging into Dixon's lawsuit say it's packed with details about how Joe allegedly used his legit businesses to cover up the shady stuff. Dixon claims Joe's record label, clothing lines, even club appearances were all ways to move money around and keep the crew paid off. That's the kind of accusation that gets investigators paying real close attention. Dixon says Joe didn't just use fear, he used loyalty. He'd help out families, pay bills, even get people out of jams so they'd stay quiet. He claims if you crossed him, though, you better watch your back. That kind of street politicking has folks saying this sounds less like a music label and more like an old-school crime family.
What happened, Daddy?
It's Fat Joe's record. I listened to it. It hurt me. I can't do it. I don't care about the money. I'm getting about the money.
Another angle people can't ignore is how these claims could drag in big names who worked with Joe over the years. Collaborators, promoters, even other artists might get asked what they knew. Dixon even hinted there were others in the industry who knew exactly what was going on but turned a blind eye. That's got people side-eyeing every photo and handshake. And the craziest part? While Joe's team is calling these claims a money grab, there's real fear it could blow up even more if more former associates come forward. Nobody wants to be the next big scandal splashed all over social media. Industry folks are already whispering about who might get subpoenaed if this goes to trial. For now, everyone's watching Fat Joe's next move. Is he going to try to settle quietly or fight this all the way in court? Because if this lawsuit really cracks open, it's not just Joe who might have questions to answer. It could put a spotlight on a whole era of hip-hop that some people would rather keep buried. And this might just be the first domino to fall. We're talking about a 157-page RICO lawsuit loaded with heavy claims. Everything from running a criminal crew to accusations about shady dealings with young women. But right in the middle of all that, 50 Cent is acting like it's nothing and saying Fat Joe's just getting set up. Wild, right? People can't help but ask, why is 50 so sure Joe's innocent? We all saw how hard 50 went at Diddy, even teasing a documentary about Diddy's alleged crimes before there was any conviction. And let's not forget Jay-Z. 50's been calling him out since the first lawsuit against Diddy dropped. Just weeks ago, he was trolling Jay and hinting he was connected to that mess with Kid Cudi's car blowing up. But now that Joe's facing a lawsuit that even calls out Roc Nation as co-conspirators, 50's brushing it off like it's no big deal. Some folks think that fan was right saying 50 plays chess, and maybe he's not really defending Joe, maybe he's just protecting his own moves. Because you gotta wonder, how much does 50 really know? If Joe did try to put a bag on his head back in the day like Dixon claims, and if even part of this lawsuit sticks, this could be way bigger than anyone's ready for. People are already calling it the start of the RICO wars in hip-hop. Insiders are whispering the feds might not stop at Joe. They could start asking questions about everybody who's connected. And with 50's name right in the middle of the drama, some are even saying he could be next in the hot seat if this thing blows wide open. If you want to keep up with all the wild details, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Drop your thoughts in the comments and tell me what you think is really going on here. Big thanks for watching.